Right, so today is about my favorite subject, well, one of my favorite subjects, which is rum, as some of you know. The other is of the other sex range, but we'll go into that another time. But it's not just about me, it's amazing people we actually got together for this panel. And of course, we've got some great rums for you to try. And we've got some bad rums for you to try as well. But that's only in my interpretation of your interpretation, because everyone's entitled to their own opinion when it comes to rums. What we're looking today for is for people to share their ideas, share their opinions, make as much noise as possible, agree with certain things. Please, if you do agree with something, clap, stamp your feet, shake your hands, jump up in the air, do backflips, whatever. If you agree with something. If you disagree, you can boo or hiss, put your hands up, because we'll be passing the mic around for you to contribute to this. This is not a presentation or a seminar as most others are, where I just stand here and flick through the PowerPoint and talk. This is about you guys, and this is about our panel sharing ideas about, as I said, my favorite category, rum. So hopefully this all works, because this is not my computer. Right, so again, I want to thank the sponsors, Clement Rum from Martinique. Thank you, Ben. And Don Q, the exceptional Puerto Rico rum. Thank you, Roberto. And of course, I think this has been filmed for Tales 365. So if you're not supposed to be with someone today, I'm looking at you, exactly. Then I do apologize. You can just say you were lost. You thought this was a vodka seminar and you just ended up in the wrong place. And the girl that was sitting next to you or the guy that was sitting next to you, you didn't really know, okay? Right, so, and there's a couple of house rules as well. If you do hear the fire alarm, the fire exit is there, don't know if there's one down there. So women first, rum ambassadors next, and then everyone else. Okay, cool. Excellent. So, what is rum? Well, what is rum to me? Rum for me has been part of my life since I was about, what's wrong? Rum for me has been part of my life since I was about 4 days old. As a Jamaican, yeah man, as a Jamaican, I've had rum. I had rum in my blood, from about 4 days old. My mum put a little bit on a nipple to put my head there to help me to sleep or to put me to sleep, depending on who was telling the story. So I've always loved rum. And when I started working behind the bars, I felt rum was the drink. It was the one that brought the fun. It was making all these amazing cocktails and making people smile, making people laugh. And there were so many different styles of rums. We had white rum, gold rum, and dark rum. Amazing styles of rums back in the 90s. That's all we knew as such for the rum category. But I knew that this was going to be my purpose, my life. I knew when I was asked to help a particular rum brand launch in Australia and New Zealand, and they were asking me questions about other rums, and I knew nothing about other rums, I knew this was going to be part of my future, to actually learn about the category and then pass that story along. So rum has always been part of my lifestyle. I actually say rum is more than a spirit. It's actually a way of life. It's a lifestyle. You guys agree with that? Yeah? And especially in Puerto Rico and the exotic cognac and Barbados and Martinique. It is a way of life there. So yeah, rum is important. And to help me share this and actually answer some of the questions and actually give their opinions, as I said, we have 4 amazing, amazing guests. I'm so privileged that they actually said yes. They're actually going to turn up and actually be subjected to my bad jokes. So first of all, I want to introduce to Mr. Roberto Serralles, from 6th generation master distiller from the Serralles distillery in Puerto Rico. And if anyone's ever had Don Q, then you know it's his fault. Okay. Next on our panel is another amazing gentleman. Actually, this guy here, one of the reasons why I love this guy, because he fell in love with Jamaican rum like I did. And I suppose that's what made him actually do exactly what he wanted to do and make some of the best rums in the world. So please give a big hand to Mr. Alexandre Gabriel, cellar master for Plantation Rum. And next on the panel is a guy that's taller than me, but he can't play basketball, so said he could hold me down to 5 points. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. But Another amazing guy. We've had some great nights partying in Miami and in London and all over the world, drinking some of the best Martinique rums inside the world. And even though his rum is an amazing, amazing rum, it's still fairly new to a lot of people out there, but that is changing slowly. So please give a big hand to Mr. Benjamin Jones, North American Regional Director for Rum Clement. And last but not least, we have Mr. Rum, Mr. Barbados Rum himself, and that's what he calls himself, Mr. Barbados Rum. A man that's basically won quite a few awards of recent with some of his rums, the Dorleys, the Four Square range. Some of you might have seen him online as well. A few of you online with some of his wholeheartedly comments about rum and the rum category and the rum industry. But again, it's basically about what's called his work. It's about his products. And that's what does most of the talking. It's those amazing rums that come from the Four Square Distillery. Please give a big hand to Mr. Richard Seale, master distiller and rum maker at Four Square Distillery. And me. Yeah, don't forget me. The rum lover. And that's my famous quote that I'd say to everyone. Yeah, don't tell me what rum to drink, and I won't tell you how to sleep with your wife or your husband. Because everyone's entitled to drink their own rum and enjoy it in any way they want. We agree? Yes. I think that's the only thing we might agree on today. Right, excellent. So what is rum, and how do we make rum? Well, I'm just going to go for quickly how I make my rum at home. So this is me in my garden, chopping down sugarcane. I live in London, and I'm the only place in London that actually has sugar cane growing inside the garden. So that's me there, chopping away. And then I put it into my little cane crusher, squeeze out that juice as well, as you would do with fresh sugar cane. And the fresh sugar cane juice, amazing cocktails. It goes well with other rums. But of course, I might want to ferment and distill that. So I might want to create some French-style rum, like you guys in Martinique. Any Brazilians here? No Brazilians? Wow, that's the first. You might want to make some Brazilian rum. Or you guys call it cachaça. Now, what? Oh, that's... It's already started. It's already started. Your mic today, you could... It's already started. Or I can heat up that fresh sugarcane juice, reduce some of the water, and turn it into syrup. I can make my Guatemalan rum. You have a Guatemalan rum, don't you, in your portfolio? Yeah. All rums from Guatemala are made from sugarcane syrup, or the marketing terms. If there's anyone from the marketing department here, I will be giving you guys some grief because that is the bane of the rum industry. But this virgin cane honey thing, I don't know what that's all about. Virgin cane honey. Anyway, so sugarcane syrup or molasses, like most of us can do. This is my plantation black. You guys in the molasses game, plantation.
No, we don't make molasses, we make rum, but I'm very honored to see that some molasses producers chose to call the brand plantation.
I thought this was like a new thing, like, like the plantation pineapple that no one can get. It's like the plantation blackstrap molasses. So I've got molasses, add some yeast to that, put some fresh water. Again, this is inside my garden, if anyone is lucky enough to come to my house in London. Beautiful little river inside there, and add some of that fresh, purified water to my yeast and my sugars, and it becomes a nice little wash. Yeast starts eating away and excreting alcohol and letting off gas, CO2. And this is my fermentation tank, not actually in my garden, because it's quite smelly. And when I make rum in my garden, I like to make the old Jamaican style, like the old style with that funky flavor. Like a little bit of, as we call, dunder, some of the big dunder pits. If you don't have any, you can actually throw some dead animals inside there. Like goats and rats and things like that. I'm actually using a fox to put inside to help me ferment. So you put a dead fox inside there with the yeast, and that it starts to activate. The yeast starts to eat and excrete and everything like that. That's nice. After a couple days, it'll be about 10% alcohol. Put it in my little pot still. This is actually not in my garden, if anyone's from Custom and Excise. Because it's illegal to make alcohol without a license. So that's not actually my garden, so my little pot still. So someone else's little pot still. Get the rum, put it inside a barrel, get some color inside there, and then you wait. Is Brian Davis here? Is anyone from Lost Spirits here? No. Right, so sorry, Brian. So yes, you wait, and you wait until it gets that beautiful, beautiful color, and it comes out, the amber nectar, as the Australians say. and you sip and savor it and admire it. Yes, and that's how you make rum. But one of the things that everyone always asks me when I'm around the world, and they always say, rums have no rules and regulations. It's the Wild Wild West. Who said no? Did you say no? The Wild Wild West. It doesn't have any rules and regulations. I mean, this is the CARICOM's definition of what a rum should be. A lot of words, but I'll highlight a couple of things. Exclusively obtained sugarcane molasses, syrup, sugarcane, sugarcane, sugarcane. Yeah? We all agree? Yeah? Everyone, but I think that's the only thing that most people agree on around the world, that rum should be made from sugarcane. This is the TTBs. Spirit distilled from fermented sugarcane, the juice of sugarcane, sugarcane syrup, sugarcane molasses, other sugarcane byproducts, less than 95% alcohol by volume. We all agree, yeah? That's what you Americans call, you are Americans, most of you, Americans call rum. Excellent. The EU definition, where I'm from, although we've just Brexited, but we are still part of the EU for another 1 year and 11 months and some days. Is that right, Simon? Yeah, it is, yeah. We're still EU. So we have to adhere to these rules as well. But again, exclusively an alcoholic fermentation, distillation, either of molasses or syrup, manufactured of sugar cane. So we're all agreeing in 3 different territories that rum should be made from sugar cane. Does the US does the US need to start getting serious about rum, like you did like hundreds of years ago when you were the bastion of all the rum making? Well, the Caribbean was, but you guys thought about it. But you guys were making so much rum over 200 odd years ago, and it fueled America. Should you guys get a little bit more serious about rum? I know Martin Cates does. Do you have Martin? Do we have a microphone we can pass around to everyone, or do I have to use this one? Am I allowed to walk around? They said I couldn't walk around too much. Okay, all right, I can pass around. Martin Cates from Smuggler's Cove, award-winning Smuggler's Cove. Martin, how many rums do you have in your bar?
About 600.
Oh, sugar.
Keep going.
600 rums.
Yes.
So obviously you know a little bit about rum. A little tiny bit. So Martin here, as I said, runs an amazing bar, Smuggler's Cove. 600 rums. How many of those rums do you think, or do you know, are made from sugar cane?
All of them.
Why?
Because I don't carry the one from Colorado that's not.
Oh, oh. I didn't say. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. But anyway, as you mentioned that, Martin, 2 brands here. This one I think some of you might know. This is the Montana rum from Colorado, and this one here that some of you may or may not know, which has been on the market for about a year and a half, called Stoneyard. Mr. Cocktail Wonk, you know this one? I know you know everything about rums over here. Yeah. Oh, you found a he found a TTB label for it. And the only difference besides, they are both from Colorado, both sold as rum. The main difference is this product here is made from sugarcane molasses, and this one's from sugar beet molasses. Yeah. Now, there's been some talk online about, well, it doesn't really matter. It's rum. Rum is fun, and some people can make things from sugar beet or sorghum or maple syrup and still call it rum. I'm really curious and interested to find, because we've got some amazing spirit people here, if anyone agrees or disagrees with that. Do we feel that rum should only be exclusively made from fresh sugar cane? Either juice, molasses, or syrup? I mean, what does our rum makers here, Mr. Roberto Serralles, what do you say?
Absolutely. I think that's the basic. Oh. Hello, can you hear me? Hi. Yes, absolutely. I think sugarcane, if there's something that we can agree on, I think it has to be on the base raw material. And it has to be sugarcane, molasses, juice, whatever you want it to do, but it's got to be sugarcane. That's my personal.
Okay. Alexandre, as a person that buys a lot of rum from all over the Caribbean, you obviously work with a lot of distillers. I mean, do you feel it's necessary for us to actually put a foot down and say rum should be made from sugarcane, a byproduct of sugarcane, or can we allow other spirit or other product or other raw materials to be used to make rum?
Now, I'm a firm believer of categorizing, to know, because then why not make it with grapes, So really, I think it's very important we agree on the raw material, and this is something very important, and the raw material can give so much options in terms of flavor developments, so I think that's plenty, and yes, rum should definitely be made from sugarcane and molasses and syrup. There's no doubt about that.
Richard,
Can everyone hear me? Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes, we can.
The problem comes conceptually because we live in the modern era, and you have these written rules. And we tend to think there are written rules, and then somebody runs off and makes rum. But that's not what it really is. We've been making rum for 300 years from sugarcane. If it's not from sugarcane, it's not rum. We only codified it, decided in the 20th century. Up to the 1890 Royal Commission in London, there was no codification on whiskey or rum or any of them. And they lamented this in 1890 and discussed whether they could find chemical analysis and signatures. So we have this backwards. If you think that you're writing rules first to make a spirit, then you're going to start thinking, well, maybe we change the rules or we do this. This is the wrong way of thinking. It's from sugarcane, and from sugarcane, it's rum. From the minute it's not from sugarcane, it's not rum. There's no, and you could change all the rules you want all over the world, but it still would be wrong. We identified it as rum because we identified this flavor from sugarcane as rum.
Okay, well, that's a passionate, what's called explanation there. But no one agreed with you because no one clapped. Oh, right. I also heard, and I think it might be from Cocktail One, that the guys that are enforcing the rules, maybe the TTB, are pretty much overworked or overstretched. As such, I'm not sure how funded they are. Is that an excuse that we could lay upon, or should we put it actually solely on the guys that are making the actual rum?
No, they are actually. I mean, the TTB, we belong to an organization in the United States, the President's Forum, Distilled Spirits, and we actually went to Congress to lobby for more money for TTB. It's the only time an industry actually goes and tells the government, you know what, we need more money for my regulator. And yeah, it was just crazy.
That is crazy.
It's because of these things, though, because exactly these things. Right now, with the explosion of craft spirits, et cetera, there's so many more applications for labels. Just think about it, how many more formulas, more products, and they just don't have the staff. So we said we need more staff so that we can go to market quicker because the waiting times are too long. So that is a problem, and that's a real problem. We're addressing it. I think they got another $1 million or something for getting more people to do label approvals.
I think, I'll come to you in a sec. I think the person that really affects the most is the lady that actually owns Montana Rum. Karen here, what do you think of the matter?
That must be the Jamaican way of saying Montana Rum, right? I like it. To me, it's interesting because the TTB supposedly told Stoneyard that they could make this as long as they called it Colorado rum. And for me, I've been making Colorado rum for almost 9 years. That felt like such a slap in my face, for sure, from sugarcane. So.
Wow, that's just thrown me there. So the TTB actually said you can. It's their own appellation. They're copying you guys in Martinique. It's going to be the Colorado appellation. You say it in French. Well, anyway, we shall see what happens with the brands and with the future of these particular rums. But as I said, the definition for rum for the TB, it seems like they're contradicting themselves, is spirit distilled from the fermentation of juice, sugarcane syrup, sugarcane molasses, and other sugarcane byproducts. That is the definition. So why is this called a rum? Who knows? This is actually what they say on their webpage, but we've said enough of these guys. Right, so do we need more clarity on labels? Let me just quickly go over to you, sir.
If you don't, what would you classify it as? Like if you had a category, so it's not rum, what would you put it into?
What about sugar beet spirit?
So you'd make up the classification?
Yeah, I think they've done it before. They've made up other classifications for other spirits.
The TTB specifically has like a distilled spirit specialty, and under that umbrella, you can then say sugar beet. You can list whatever you want.
And I think it's a great question because we should be. It doesn't mean that because we are for following regulation in the sense of keeping the essence of the product. To me, that's really what is important. Regulation is there to keep the essence of what is what, right? It's the same debate for any other spirits, right? When is a gin, when is a... So I think that's important, but I do love the question in a sense that what if somebody wants to be creative and be crazy and make a product from sugar beet or something else, and it might actually be delicious. I don't know. Anybody
Yeah, I mean,
tasted it?
that's the thing. I mean, it could be a great tasting product.
This
That
is-
shouldn't be called rum.
I think the problem we're having, the only problem, and I think the TB would probably clearly state that it really doesn't belong to that category. It should go into a different category. And the regulators, and hallelujah, I think it's a great idea to give more money to the regulators to do their job properly. And I think it's, there's a lot to say about that. And really, it should be in that case not being forbidden, but just called what it is. Right, okay. And rum is not made from sugar beet.
Again, the words here create the sort of wrong impression. We use the word regulated, but really in this kind of scenario, and in most kinds of scenarios with these rules, is what we're looking for is protection. So therefore, regulations are not constraining anybody or restricting anybody. Off you can go and make your spirit from sugar beet. But we in the rum industry need the protection, and you, the consumer, need the protection as to what the word rum is. No one's constraining anybody from doing anything.
Okay, right. As we move on quickly, do we need more clarity on labels? Raise your hand if you think yes. Put your hands down. Put your hands down if you say no. Oh wow, everyone. Oh, that means everyone. And the others are abstaining. So we need more clarity on the labels according to you guys. Okay. I just highlighted this particular brand here because they've gone as far, the Lost Spirit guys, they've gone as far as saying we do not contain any coloring. We do not contain any flavor additives, and actually say what the rum is made from. Distilled from baking grade molasses. I hope it's sugar cane, but it is. Baking grade molasses, water, and yeast culture. So they've gone as far as actually saying what we're made from, and what we don't add in there. And now, is this the future for the rum industry? I mean, do you see you guys doing things like that, actually putting exactly what you put inside your bottle on the label?
I hope not.
You hope not?
No.
Any particular
No,
reason?
because I honestly, I mean, bravo for them to do that. And for sure, I'm the first believer in clarity and transparency. But when you go to the trouble to list all those things, maybe the consumer now is saying, okay, what are we compensating for? Why are you telling me all this? Because what are you hiding? And all of a sudden now you start to really maybe confuse the market, confuse the consumer, because all this new information that you don't see in all these other bottles are there. So I think where we're going is that we all believe in some protection, some regulation, some standards based on history and where it's from and origin. And if we can finally come to a full agreement with not just regulation and protection, but I'd say policing and enforcement. And yes, the TTB is overworked, but it's not just the protection of us, the producers, it's protection of the consumer, because when they spend $30, $50 for a bottle, they should hopefully get what they think that they're paying for.
Okay. Richard, you were saying?
Well, I just wanted to sort of expand on that, because I don't want people to think that Ben's trying to hide, sort of saying it's nothing to conceal. What we really want is that when you say that word rum, it has a very clear meaning, and that's your starting point in terms of information. You state it's rum, so in other words, it should be redundant to state does not contain coloring additives or does not contain color other than what's legally allowed in rum. Does not contain flavor. In other words, it should be very, when we say rum, because we don't want a situation where every producer is making up their mind as to what they want to say, and then there's confusion. So we want to have what you would call a common standard. However, what I want to be crystal clear, and I want to jump ahead to the premiumization. As you move up the premiumization ladder, the more I ask you to pay, the more clarity you must have. So, for example, something as simple as an age statement. If it's a premium rum, it must be crystal clear. It cannot be ambiguous. Extra old or
That's what
cast number 21.
That's what the French guys do, don't they? The extra old and vieux.
Yeah, but they have rules as to what that means.
Okay.
So again, yes, they have.
So they don't in Barbados. They have extra old in Barbados as well, don't they?
But it's an advantage and it can be also seen as a disadvantage because, for example, we have VSOP, and for those who know what VSOP is, it's 4 years old, and that bottle stands next to another bottle that may say 23. And
No one's going to put 23 on their bottle.
And that illustrates your point, because the one is crystal clear as to what it means, and the other is, well, it's a bit fuzzy. And that's unacceptable. And it certainly becomes more and more unacceptable the more premium you go. I mean, it's one thing if the fuzzy one is $12, buyer beware. But when someone says pay $100 for this bottle, you better damn well have data distillation and data bottling on it.
This is a rum session, sir. But you're right. Yeah. But I understand what you're saying.
Where would that stop? You have to start including the compounds derived from the wood, because that isn't the full list of ingredients that are actually inside that thing. You've got characteristics from the wood there.
I mean, like sherry cast finish and PX cast finish.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why we need to have a common standard as to what rum means. Because then, people can start getting carried away with different lists and cause a lot of confusion. So if, for example, rum can be aged in wood, then you would implicitly know, it says rum on your label, it could be, aged in American oak, and that's fine. So you have a common starting point and build from there.
Remember, rum is probably the most democratic of all spirits. It is made throughout the entire world, and it's been made for a long time in different ways all over the place. But that is the inherent confusion in the category. In the United States, that's the problem, that we have products coming in from other traditions, other ways of doing it, and we're not very clear as to what rum is. So getting to some sort of industry understanding of what that rum means, and then translating that to the FAA, the regulatory act, to say, okay, rum has to be X, Y, Z. Because right now it's too loose. It's just basically sugarcane, and they're not even policing that part, sugarcane molasses.
Yeah, exactly.
And then distilled below a certain proof. Now, what about aging? Does rum have to be aged? I'm of the idea that, for it to be rum, maybe you should spend some time in a barrel.
What?
I mean,
He obviously doesn't know the rum I grew up drinking, Ray and Nephew Overproof. No age, pure rum.
which is fine, and that would just be
100%.
unaged rum. There's rum, and then there's unaged rum.
All right,
That's just an idea. So again, but that's something we won't be able to get in agreement of. What is that definition of rum? That's where it gets complicated.
Yeah.
And because otherwise, it's really just a sugarcane distillate. When does it become rum? And that's to me one of those things. But again, I come from the tradition that we have to put everything in a barrel. Puerto Rican rum, by law, has to be in a barrel. I'm sure
Yeah, that's the case in a lot of countries. Even stuff that's sent to Canada has to be in a barrel for a year.
Coming from a country of, I don't know if you guys can hear me, a lot of regulation, France, and being from a highly regulated, I'm educated as some of you don't know me, as a master blender in cognac, from a regulation that's 23 pages. I think I have a few things to say about that. The first thing is, when I discovered and fell in love with rum 27 years ago, I like what you say, it's the spirit of democracy, this democracy of flavors. And I think, regulation is a wonderful thing as long as we make sure it's a common denominator that is not going to kill that democracy and that freedom of producing incredible flavors. That's, to me, is something I want to defend with my life. That, I think, is something very important for rum. I'll give you a few examples. This is a great important point. Here, Robert, wonderful rum, fine gentleman. It's a country that says rum has to be 2 years old. Should we make rum 2 years old everywhere? Well, absolutely not. I mean, don't fist fight me, but I really think that there's some beautiful rums that right off the stills are delicious.
And then from Martinique.
Amen. Couldn't find anything to hit.
I tell you one thing, they are from all over, and really, and of course from Martinique as well. And so really, what I think is wonderful about rum, and something we don't want to clamp down, and I don't want to be party pooper, I agree with what is said about the fact that regulations are important as a common denominator. We've read them, I think they're pretty crystal clear, and we have a problem enforcing them. So I think it's something that where we should be spending the money. I am actually for transparency. Just, if you do something, just tell me. Do what you say what you do. I think it's a wonderful rule. And then not try to put everything in a box, because then one guy's got to tell you one thing. Now a lot of rums want to become GI, geographical indication. And I was discussing with somebody, very fine gentleman, actually from Jamaica was not you, Ian, but another one. There's quite a few.
Makes a change in discussing me.
And you know, I said, okay, we're going to be doing a GI, and we're going to say aged in oak. It's got to be aged. And I say, okay, why not? But what kind of barrels? It's got to be oak. What if somebody who does research, I do a lot of research in spirits, discovered that, you know, 100 years ago, cognac was aged in, and you'll see what I'm telling you about cognac, was aged in chestnut barrels, for example. Now you can do it. It's forbidden. And we have some cognacs, actually, that were aged in chestnut barrels.
That's right, that's right.
They're just great. They're just wonderful. Don't you want to try it? It's these sweet, nice, beautiful tannins. Do you want to kill this in rum? I don't. I think we should keep that freedom into rum and find, what I feel, a common denominator of what we agree rum is, and make sure we respect the regulations of different countries. I just would like to, thank you. You know, and I'm sorry, I want to finish on this.
Yeah, because we're running out of time. We've only got
It's
an hour
just,
left. Only got an hour left.
I was trying to put my finger on this recently, and I took somebody I know well, is actually from my family, to a beautiful Korean restaurant in France, in Paris. And this fine gentleman from Burgundy, very educated about fine food and fine wine. Burgundian will tell you there's only wine in Burgundy, and that's one of these gentlemen. And we are at this restaurant, beautiful food, Korean food, very, very high in spices, very spicy. And this older gentleman says, you know, these guys should learn how to cook. And this guy's like a fine Korean chef. And I'm like starting to be, what? And he says, yes, they're in France. They should learn how to cook. This is the country of food, right? So he says, and this person goes on saying, there's so many spices, my palate cannot access the food. Now, from his standpoint, he's right, you know? And it really opened my eyes, is that, are we going to colonize everybody to say this is the way I like it and you're going to make it exactly the way I like it? No, I think we should keep that beautiful diversity of what rum is. And we'll talk about some of the issues later on. And I've spent more than 20 years studying this from every region. And this is something we want to preserve. And I want to make sure that, you know, regulation is not going to be that jail that we're going to put rum into. That, on the contrary, transparency should really be the solution, I find. So, and for the record, this fine gentleman is my father. So,
I just want to expand very, very quickly because I don't have time. I think one of the things that is presented falsely, the idea that you have one or two choices, that you're either going to be this, you know, unregulated free-for-all or suddenly some homogenous global regulation. Absolutely nobody wants that. Right now, you're here in America, and you can drink Scotch whiskey made one way, bourbon whiskey made one way, Japanese whiskey made one way. But what's clear is what you're buying. And that's what we want with rum. So no one's saying that suddenly the United States or Europe has to have some uniform global regulation for rum. Not at all. But as long as you change that word from regulation to protection, you'll understand the motivation of what we're trying to do.
And with that, sorry, I know you're going to go, but with that, to support you, is that here in the US we have all these different types of whiskey, and I don't know of any, maybe there's one, but there's no bourbon brand I see on the front of the label or even the back where it says 51% corn. But people are educated and they know their products.
True, is it?
But you know, you say bourbon, you know.
And if you ask for Irish whiskey, it's triple distilled. Does a consumer know that? But they understand what they're going to get when they're buying, and it's a little confusing without the.
So we want the same with rum. You buy a Jamaican rum, it means something. You buy a Puerto Rican rum, it means something. And
Okay,
Robert,
so
yeah.
So basically, yay and nay, or yes and no for
Well, we're
actually
we're
adding.
the same.
Yeah, the same. Yeah,
Just-
the same. Yeah, there's no arguments yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Both Alexander and I do not want to destroy rum's true diversity. Clear.
So that
Thank
means
you
we
for saying that.
probably will see some new marketing terms on some of these rum brands. And I mean, I've just highlighted a couple here on what's called the Velia rum. So Lucas rum down here. Ooh. Oh, everyone likes Velia. Well, only the people in the front like Velia. They've used the word sugar-free on their label, basically saying that point that you were saying, Ben, about actually saying we don't put sugar in there, but maybe other people are.
Wait, they don't distill from sugar?
Oh, no. Oh, no, that's another point. That's another point. And then the Mezan range is untouched. Untouched. No caramel, no filtration, no sugar. So they're using these buzzwords to actually describe to their consumers because that's their marketing term as such. Maybe we might see some more brands adopt that. The next question. Are age statements of some companies misleading to consumers? Alexandre.
Well, let's talk about, I mean, you just brushed through the sugar issue just like
No,
that.
we haven't gone to the sugar issue yet.
You
That's
know,
coming, that's coming.
honestly, this
No,
is
that's coming, that's
something
coming.
that's-
That's coming.
23 pages.
That's coming.
You know, I'm going to go back to this if you want.
No, that's coming, that's coming.
And you know, I just want to say something. You know, some of these words, and all the bless, you know, the guys who's using it, but untouched. So you don't touch the rum. You just say, I'm doing it with my hands tied in the back. You know? I don't touch it. I just do it like this with my. I mean, some of these words are like so misleading.
You mean
on
like-
their
you like-
own
you mean
by
like
trying
handcraft,
to- Really,
like
what is it?
handcraft.
It's just marketing in a different place. In the end, is that to me, the idea is producing a great product by guys who are, and ladies and men, who are very skilled about what they're doing. Who's your master? How did you learn what you do? And tell me what you do. And I don't know, you want me to talk about sugar right now?
No, yeah, we're getting there, we're getting there. We're on the schedule, we're on the schedule. But yeah, handcraft and hand touch and handcraft and that like, are great buzzwords from those markets. I'm sorry if anyone is in marketing. Is anyone into marketing here? I'm sorry, you guys, because it's marketing guys. Anyway, yeah, 8 statements. Again, speaking about marketing, one of these products here is a 12-year-old, in my definition. I don't know about everyone else, because everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but there's only one of these products here that has, that is the youngest product in the blend, is 12 years old, as in it sat inside a barrel for 12 years before it was blended and used and put into a bottle. The others are blends of younger rums up to 12, or a Solera blend with a age statement on there, or a statement on there. And some, like the marketing guys, your marketing, will just put a number on the label because they hope I'm assuming they hope the consumer wants to assume that that is that particular age.
This is probably the single most, shall we say, thing that really bothers me a little. Infuriating.
Yes.
About, and that, again, comes from the beauty of our diversity as producers from all over the place. We do have different rules and different age statement
Yeah,
sort of rules.
but let's be clear. When you're selling in the United States, it's the rules of the United States that
Exactly.
matter. When you are selling in Europe, it's the rules of Europe. And the rules of, it's amazing how many times I've seen written with great authority, people writing here on rum, you know, on the online or whatever, oh, the rules are different for rum. No, they're not. The rules in US are the same on age statements for all spirits. You put an age claim, it must be the youngest spirit in the blend. There's no special rule for rum that you can put any, you know.
So I can't
isolated
put my
number
niece's age on there when I blend it up. My niece is 12 years old. I'm going to put it on there, and I can't do that.
But in your point with marketing, they mislead the consumer because,
Yes.
like Ian's saying, right, you know, comes from 12 different distilleries,
No one's going to say that. 12 different blends of rum.
12 different barrels.
No one would say that. So, question.
No, but this is really critical point, and I think that's another great thing. The issue here, really, as a producer, if you're aging in the tropics, our losses are huge. I lose almost 10% the first year. Wow. That's why, 12-year-old, we've done the compounded loss rate, and I lose about almost 70% of my juice in 15 years. And how does somebody sell a 12-year-old for like whatever, $15 or something? It doesn't make sense. Obviously, because they haven't had that cost.
Is one of them $15?
Well, no, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Oh, I was going to say, I want
I see
it.
some products out there that age.
But yeah, you'll see ones with numbers 23 and 25, and they're low, they're moderately priced. Yeah, it's great.
There's not much rum left in a barrel after 23.
But everything we're talking about, transparency, regulation, protection, all that stuff, what really needs to come along with it is real vocabulary, adjectives, descriptors that are attributed to either Horm agricole or Barbadian rum or anything, so that when you put something in the glass like that, I have a good idea where that comes from or how it's made or whatnot.
I mean, this scenario here is doubly harmful, because I think, for example, that as long as rum's premiumization involves obfuscation and deception, we will never reach the full potential of rum. That's one side of it. The second side of it, it's very damaging to the rest of us who actually put a real number on. I mean, because then our real numbers don't look good.
I
Alexandre?
want to say two
Alexandre?
things about this. I think this is a very important issue, and relating to what I said earlier, I think what on the label it should be what it is. So I think that solves the issue. If it says 12 years, it's 12 years. And really, the regulations are already in place. And back to my point previously, it's a matter of two things: making sure the institutions, make this respected, and also you guys being here. I think it's wonderful to have a full room. Education is very often the solution to a lot of problems in this world. That includes fine spirits. And my second point is that, and I might surprise you a little bit, especially you, sir, and you're absolutely right, by the way, and very educated in what you're saying about blends. But as a master blender, and there is something very important. Once again, I'm going to fight for this idea of no homogenization. The Solera system. And you say Monterrey, and some people said, a friend of mine said, Solera is Spanish for bullshit, for example. And I
Who said that?
and you know what? I would tell you, I'm going to surprise you here. I disagree with this deeply, and I'll tell you why.
I agree.
I tell you why. This is one of the culture of rum. Now, I think you can do Solera, but you can tell me about it. Tell me what you're doing. In blending terms, as a master blender, we call this a wide range blend. Now, as a blender, when you create a wide range blend, you use a wide range of eau de vie, of distillate, from a younger age to an older age, creating layerings. Not so many master distillers know this technique very well, but it's a wide range blend. When it's well done, you can create so many layers on your palate, and if you grate, you can actually call fondu, which is the integration of this into one beautiful spirit that's very satisfying. Now, what has happened with the Solera system is by people topping off this barrel out of necessity, right? The evaporation, you're right, first year 10%, second year is probably 7%, 6.5%, and so on. Pretty much everybody has the same evaporation in the Caribbeans. Then out of necessity, some people create houillage by topping off, right, like this. And here, a beautiful technique starts to emerge. It's like the French eating a little snails. Nobody said, look at this little thing, it looks delicious, I'm going to eat it, right? It's somebody first says, okay, I'm starving, I'm eating it, and we make a great dish out of it. Necessity sometimes creates beautiful products. So in that sense, that's exactly what I want everybody here. And I'm sorry, I'm just not like I don't like single thinking. As you know, I think the beauty of rum is that yes, I agree, transparency, honesty, what is on it, it should be true, but let's not do that little shortcut by saying, yeah, but then Solera, and all due respect, so you know exactly what's happening. But once you know, some of these rums are actually delicious, as you know, when you know they are wide range blends, and we're interested to know, okay, yeah, maybe the youngest one probably is 4 years old, and the oldest one is 20 years old, and it can actually be a beautiful spirit. But I just want to know about it. That's my take.
I think.
Thank you.
I think one of the things I've heard from a lot of bartenders, a lot of industry people around the world is when it comes to Solera, and they redefine exactly what our gentleman said. They don't say Solera is Spanish for bullshit. They say Solera age statements are Spanish for bullshit, because I can put my hands up and there are so many Solera rums that I drink that are amazing, and you make one as well, amazing. But you'd never see on a Gran Añejo bottle 12 years old. And it's a blend of rums up to 12. But it's the technique, as you can't even say the word, eloquently, how do you say it? Eloquently. Says better in French. Put it. It is about the blend of the different rums, and that should be what actually is exuded to the customer, the blend of the rum, not an age statement created by the marketing people to try to compete, and at the detriment of products that have been minimum aged. So I love Solera rums. I hate Solera age statements.
So next year, let's do this with.
I mean, I'm totally in sync with,
Thank you.
with Alexandre. I mean, no one wants to restrict anyone from doing what they want to do. If blending, and they have a technique for blending a wide range of rums, and you produce a good product, off you go. But don't spin it as what it's not.
Right. I think that's the key issue. Because, I mean, we started our Solera system, 50 years ago?
Yeah.
And we only use it as a portion of our blend. It provides a beautiful layer. I mean, so these beautiful, beautiful rums. But I can't say, but then what only concerns me is that, should I be able to put 50-year-old rum on the bottom? It's like, no.
But
I would, because
but
I
the
wouldn't
thing
make
is,
money.
there's two sets of spin involved. There's one the number. And two, some of these Soleras are not Soleras. It's just a guy saying, well, I blended some rums together. And
So the marketing
Solera
people,
sounds
again.
nice.
System.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to blame the marketing people. Let's ask Martin Cake, because you have a bar. Martin, customer comes in there and says, I want a 12-year-old, and I've seen one of these products on the bar. What would you say to them?
Someone can correct me, but my understanding is that TTB says there's only two expressions you can use on the label. It has to say either 12 years old or aged 12 years.
Yes.
If it's not either of those expressions, there's probably shenanigans.
There should be what? I'm sorry.
Shenanigans, sir. It's not a French word.
It's an Irish
I
word.
believe it's probably Irish, yeah.
It's not a French word.
Married.
It's an Irish word for me. It's something is going afoot. A big foot.
I have to learn English.
Yes, you're right. So 8 statements. And right, so because we are pushed for time, we have quite a few questions to go through. I just wanted to see if this works now, because you guys changed your computer on me. Let's see if this works. Okay, so that's a product I created about 3 years ago on April the 1st in the UK. And for some reason, I got a load of orders. People saying, oh, I want to buy that rum-flavored vodka, that Gannibal vodka. And all I did was a video. I did a little web page. I made an amazing story that it was filtered through Madonna's panties. And it was charcoal filtered through the Apollo fir tree, which is an anagram for April Fools. And people believed it. Marketing. So, but it leads on to the next question. Are some rums really aged vodkas, or is this just synonymous to modern distillation? Roberto. Because you have a big multi-column still.
Yes.
Make lots of high-proof rum.
But the U.S. definition means that I come out of that still less than 189. So I'm.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you come out with 189. What's that proof? What's that in alcohol by volume? My maths is really bad. 94.5. You just make it. Just make it, because that's 95. Okay. Okay. Rich, you want to take us through the first two products?
Well, have a look at number 1 and number 2. That's the two white spirits at the top. Have a look at them. Have a nose first before you taste them. Nose them both. Have a first.
Be careful that one of them is poisonous.
And here's
alcohol. Alcohol's a
very-
poison. Alcohol's
Here's
poison.
a very simple question.
Is it poison?
Which one is the vodka?
Now they're nice and warm, room temperature. Molecules are sped up. Pick up some of those aromas. Oh, David Sid over there with his astute sense of smell can say, pick this out. Paul won't be able to because he was out till 5 in the morning.
I mean, the first thing I should probably ask is it tricky? Yeah. Everybody agree it's pretty tricky? All right, when I ask you another question, is either one of those whiskey? No.
Ooh.
Is that a tricky question? No. Good. All right. Who thinks number 1 is the vodka? We got a few people, all right. Maybe 20, 30%, maybe 40. Who thinks number 2 is the vodka? Okay. Right, okay. The question of this seminar is, when is rum not a rum? In my view, when rum is not a rum is when you cannot tell it from vodka.
So are you saying one of them is a rum?
One of them is sold as rum, and one of them is sold as vodka.
Wow.
And I'll go back to that definition. There's two common things in all the definitions. Yes, it's from sugarcane, and it retains the flavor of sugarcane. And that's a common thing in every spirit definition. So when I asked you which one of those is a whiskey, you knew it was an absurd question. But one of them is distilled from grain, and one of them is distilled from molasses. And it's absurd to suggest that the one from grain is whiskey. And I put it to you, it's equally absurd to suggest the one from molasses is rum.
Cool. Okay. Any opinions on that? Are you going to tell us where the rum's from?
No.
Oh, okay. You won't.
But I'll tell you.
I know.
I'll tell you.
And it's not from Jamaica.
But I'll tell you a simple commonality. You know, when you look at spirit making, you have cognac and brandy making, and it's from pot stills and traditional column stills. And you look at whiskey, whether it's, you know, American whiskey or Scottish whiskey, and it's from pot stills and traditional column stills. And you look at, but rum now, you see rum, you have this modern distillation, multi-column system creeping in. And the problem is you write a regulation, and even though the regulation is adequate in terms of it says it must retain the flavor, writing a regulation merely in terms of proof is simply inadequate. It's perfectly possible to make absolutely 100% neutral spirit and fit within the proof definition.
So is it? But would you not say that this is just a symbol of modern distillation?
Correct. In other words,
Yeah?
any suggestion that this is tradition, of course, is nonsensical because the technology to make either of those spirits, whether grain or molasses, simply didn't exist until at least about 30 or 40 years ago. Simply didn't exist. And as I say, for me, if you cannot distinguish it, identify it as rum, it's not rum. Because again, get back to what I first originally said. What the definition of a spirit or what makes a spirit is not a rule book, it's the flavor. And we identified the flavor that comes from sugar cane. We named that rum. And as long as you've destroyed the flavor, it can't be rum. And we see this culture right through because, I mean, I read, for example, there was a complaint in the Philippines with the WTO. There was a complaint to the WTO. And in their report, they wrote, brandy. Well, in the Philippines, we don't make brandy like how we do in Europe because they churn out neutral spirit from the big multi-column plant. They put some brandy flavoring in. It's brandy. Then they went along and wrote about whiskey in this big report. Said, well, in the Philippines, they don't make whiskey like how they do in the rest of the world because they take neutral alcohol, they put some whiskey flavor in, and they write whiskey. And then it came along to rum. And they said, oh yeah, well, rum's made like how it's made in the rest of the world, but they took neutral spirit and they put rum flavor in it. But for some reason, molasses seems to have this magical quality that even if you distill neutral alcohol from it, it suddenly is okay to call it rum. Well, I reject that wholeheartedly. Rum has to have the flavor of rum.
Roberto?
Yeah, no, I have to disagree with a little bit of the context. To say that multi-column distillation has been creeping in is not quite a fair statement. We've been making rum since 1934.
But you wouldn't have been using a multi-column system in 34.
Yes.
Well, you wouldn't. In other words, well, I don't know specifically you, but there are multi-column plants, for example, that are using a column called a hydroselection or purification column, and that column technology that column is only around from the 1970s.
Well, that's one of the columns.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So a lot of, I mean, I'm not talking about you specifically.
But his rum was, no,
I
I'm
promise
joking. It wasn't your rum.
Neither of these are from Don Q, I can guarantee.
None of them from Puerto Rico.
I thought you were going to say Puerto Rico, but you couldn't say that.
No, they're not. No, they're not from Puerto Rico.
It's actually a small island that the Jamaicans don't like.
The point of that exercise is not the point fingers, but the point I'm making is just because you have a multi-column plant doesn't mean you're guilty. However, to make this, you actually absolutely have to have a multi-column plant with modern technology to make this type of thing.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So just wanted to wait.
There's something I want to say about this.
Alexandre first, and then David over here from
Just
Bacardi.
imagine, for me, coming to the Caribbean 27 years ago professionally and going to see the distillers.
Which one did you go to first?
I'll tell you later if you want, but that's going to make the story longer. So I arrived in the Caribbean from Cognac. In Cognac, we use these tiny little pot stills, 25 hectoliters. The bottom of the still is the size of this table. And we arrive, and you know when you're a Cognac guy and being French doesn't help either, you think this is just the only way to make your product, and Cognac spends so much to do this. It's a very unique product. And you arrive in the Caribbean with preconceived idea, which I hate, but I was like that. And I said, they use Collins over there. You must be kidding me, Collins. And we know, just to put things, I like to put very not arguable facts. A pot still distillation cost, I'm going to give you my cost, 152.5 euro per hectoliter of pure alcohol. Column distillation usually is around 80 to 20 euro, an hectoliter of alcohol. Now, it might have better or worse cost, I don't know, but it's just, I was thinking, people said, Colin still rum can actually be delicious. And back then I was thinking, yeah, sure, for your wallet. And really, when I look in retrospect, I was wrong. I tasted Colin rum that were delicious, that were nice, elegant, stylish. And so I really want to take this debate to something where you can go and scream wolf and things like this. But if you really have an open-minded, you can actually access to beautiful pleasures. Because in the end, all of this is for what? For having incredible pleasure when you drink it. And I have this, tasted rums that are from Collins that are incredible. And you hear that from a little geek from Cognac that distills in tiny little pot stills. So I think there is something to be said about that. And that's also, once again, the beauty of rum. That's the beauty of rum. And so now, the issue that's being showed here is something that's actually, I think the solution to all of this, and I repeat this, is education. What it is about, it's really whatever apparatus you use. I can actually use a Collins still and charcoal filtration to the point, not to contradict Richard, to the point of very similar neutrality. If you come to Cognac, I'll show you, and it can be made with a pot still. And I can take it down to something as neutral as this. If you don't believe me, you come see and I'll do it for you. So it's not so much about this, is what we talk, and if you want to know about this, is the quantity of taste elements. The French will try to do this by regulating, as you know, for Rhum Agricole, for example, 225, which is mirrored of what Cognac is, 225 of taste elements per hectoliter of alcohol. And actually, I don't know if you know, the government in America is trying to work on this as we speak, and they did a regulation. Now it's 9 grams, so we're making progress.
It's
it
actually
was 0, now it's 9. So
9.909.
And so we're going to get there progressively. But once again, it's education. And where I agree about Richard is the definition. And it's the same about gin, by the way. Gin says it should be a dominant flavor, juniper berries, and sometimes it's like, where are the juniper berries? They're gone, I think it's the same issue here. Is that really, where's the sugar cane? And the sugar cane could be there. So on that front, I do agree. And on that front, I think, I believe regulation is one thing, but also don't take the consumer for fools. A lot of them will be able to say, maybe this is not what I want to drink because I want the rum to sing. I want to hear, and I want to taste the sugar cane. So I think it's something very.
Okay, as we, sorry, I just have to, Richard, just have to get that. Just want to get what's called another point of view from here.
This issue is not an apparatus issue.
He's not going to get in there.
Alexander is completely correct. You can make beautiful, beautiful spirits from a column still. The problem is when you configure your apparatus and have in your capacity, for example, I have a column still, but it cannot make this. It's impossible. But if you have, and you make this for rum, and that's where we go wrong. But it's not an apparatus issue. It's back to definition.
Yeah.
It's pointless to be slammed the table. It must be from sugarcane if you can't actually recognize it's from sugarcane.
Sure, but
Good point.
We're talking
So
about
David from Bacardi.
Well, thanks for having me in. Can you hear me? All right, excellent. Yeah, there you go. Feel like the girl that got invited to prom late. You see it on the side here. But it's a pleasure. Thank you, everyone on the panel. It's amazing. I just wanted to, yes, I totally agree with Alexander and with Richard, especially the last comment you just made, Richard. One of the things that we just can't ignore is that even though some of us have multi-column facilities, we may have a separate single column made of copper, to the point of Richard, that we use quite distinctively to make a very distinct product that is going to be a compound in a blend. And the compound that is multi-distilled to 185, 186 in some cases, 189 barely, 188.6, whatever, there is some behavior of that alcohol in the barrel that as long as you know how you're using it as a compound in a blend, then it's going to contribute something quite unique. But the heart of the rum, in our case at Bacardi, is a distillate that we distill between 140 and 155, 156 That's the aguardiente. And without that, being the main contributor of flavor to the rum, we simply refuse to call it rum because we do make a vodka in Puerto Rico made from the higher grade distillate that we don't age. So I think that as long as to our point of transparency, to our point of tradition, we stay true to that. But I would like to add one thing, which is really why I raised my hand, is that many of us in this room don't know that white rum is actually going through a very dangerous phase right now. And of course, says the guy from Bacardi that owns the largest white rum in the world, right? But I do feel that amongst the many variables and different factors that are occurring in rum that are dangerous to the category, white rum right now is going through a very dangerous piece of that. Why? You have a lot of white rums in the market that have flavor additives, not sugar, not just, I'm speaking about flavor compounds that are being sold to you and represented as multi-column, 5-column distilled, whatever it is, unaged. They're clearly telling you it's unaged, and the amount of vanillin that you find in some of these rums is just absolutely scientifically impossible to have without touching a barrel. Now, the second piece of that, and I'll wrap this up because I know you have to move this forward, is that also the perception of value is very misconstrued, especially in white rum. Yeah, you can buy a bottle of Bacardi for $12.99, but guess what? You can't buy it for $9.99. It's impossible. We can't make it below that. There are cost factors amongst all of us. And for us, it changes. For us, it's one way because we can make millions of cases of Bacardi, of rum, that's going to go into Bacardi Superior. So we buy molasses at a certain price point that simply maybe Don Q or Richard or somebody else cannot buy it at that price point. But does it make the rum any less good or great or feasible for a cocktail? That's something for you to judge, absolutely. But the consumer then may be misled because a craft distiller, and I have nothing against craft, Don Facundo was technically a craftsman for us, the first one. We've grown since then, but when a craft distiller goes out and buys molasses, that molasses is extremely expensive. Much more expensive than the molasses that I'm buying, even though I might be buying better quality, but I'm buying it at such a volume that I can afford to price my rum cheaper. But my molasses might be better. So the transparency piece leads into more areas outside of just what's in the bottle. There are variables in production that we may not be aware of because nobody's really talking to that level that affect the price point and the perception of value and the perception of quality as well.
Valid point. So everyone will have different costs.
Everyone has had a chance to talk up here except me. So give me.
Everyone, sorry? Everyone what?
So no, but I know that you want to move on, but I really wanted to just add, contribute, and introduce another way of thinking because I've heard opinion from one very recognized master distiller, and I heard the opinion of another master distiller, and everyone's talking about proof, distillation proof, 95, and whatnot. We all agree. Something we talk about at Martinique is non-alcoholic parts. So why are we're so focused on exactly, but we're so focused on proof. Why don't we talk about how much non-alcoholic parts are in the product, and then you can start to have
that's a better
So
point.
let's have,
we'll say that.
No
We'll
point of
definitely say that for part 2.
But that's certainly better than
thing.
proof of distillation. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
non-alcoholic parts give you the character of rum, what we want, right?
No, I mean
you can't hide anything about that.
In one of my seminars, I point out to people the massive difference and I use the congener analysis between a whiskey distilled in a twin column system up to 94.8% and a spirit distilled like this in a multi-column still at 96%. And unfortunately, you've been taught this sort of linear relationship, and you think, there should be a small difference between the two, and they're worlds apart because they're two different, completely different distillation methods. And one of the reasons why Alexandre jumped in to defend column distillation, and I'm glad he did, because one of the problems we suffer, we have a little twin column system, and one of the problems we suffer is, it's just like how you thought when you first came in, that everyone lumps all column stills together and think they all make stuff like this. They don't. Column stills can make beautiful spirit. Right. These two are not beautiful.
Okay. Speaking of beautiful spirits, question that a lot of people ask every day when we talk about rum, is there too much sugar in rums? Or is this just the evolution of the premium sector, the evolution of the premium sector? All premium rums going to have sugar inside there. And do the customers need to know all the secrets? Alexandre.
I think this is a very, talked about issue, that drove me nuts early on because I thought that was such a small subject when you know the whole scheme of making a great spirit, and yet a totally ununderstood technical point. Let me be specific. There's a technique that's hundreds of years old called dosage. Dosage spirits, when they were made for a long, long time ago.
Bloody French getting in there again. Dosage.
So where people have been aging, sometimes roasting and aging sugar for a very long time in a barrel with alcohol and adding very small quantity to this to find spirits. And don't forget, rum was invented on a sugar plantation. So, you told me Ian yesterday, saying, Alexander, we just went, this very fine gentleman who has a great collection of rum, and we analyzed some old rums, and they actually had dosage. I'm like, yes, Ian, I've been telling you this for 20 years. and it's that tradition. Once again, if we try to put everything into a box, remember the story of my father. If you don't have the palate, that some cultures might use greater amount of dosage. Now, my culture, the way we've learned, I'm classically trained as a master blender. In cognac, we think, 10 to 16, 18 grams really works perfectly in my palate. It's developed that way. And I was taught, this very fine gentleman, and in the rum country, Laurie Barnard, and really God bless him, he's disappeared now from St. Lucia Distillers, and really had all that culture in him. And when I was talking from master blender to master blender, we really saw eye to eye. So when I started seeing the issue and I read on the label, untouched, I make it with my hands in my bag. This is really, really a marketing approach that can actually kill a tradition of making rum. Now it's about education and knowing how it's done. Now a real technique of dosage, when you learn how to be a master blender, you need to work on it for 5 years. So, people working with me, and I'm a little passionate. Imagine you have to work with me. It's not Christmas every day, but, we have great days too. I always say, if you tell me about a technique, master it first. Then we talk. But if you just shoot from the hip, then why should I be talking? And I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just saying that really working on great spirits, that's very important to understand these cultures. And that's why I'm saying when we do regulation, and I know EC is allowing, of course, dosage for rum, but there is now some pressure to say maybe we should make it forbidden. The story of my father, let's teach them how to make good food, not too much spices or this and that. Well, I think there are certain countries, especially Central America, Southern America, that tend to work with a greater dosage. And it might not be your palate, but who are we to say, you're wrong, I'm right, because I'm back from Europe and we know everything. And I think that's what I've discovered about rum and I thought was fascinating, is that beautiful diversity that creates emotion, flavors, and wonderful things. So for me, in that sense, this is not about premiumization, all of this. I cannot even say the word.
It's really don't worry.
about, the authenticity, the cultures that we should study and learn and respect.
Okay. And that's for me, sorry, for me, this
Steve,
point is really about, agree with you. I mean, there's something, nobody's against innovation, nobody's against tradition, anything like that. I think it's an issue of simply transparency. And because I think my main concern is that there are rums coming out to the market with very high levels. And when does the rum not become a rum? When it has how much amount of sugar in it? And again, nothing against tradition or ways of people doing it. I don't think that's the case. My concern is that consumers start thinking that rum has to be sweet.
Yep, exactly.
And that's... And that, affects the category. Again, I'm all for innovation. Go out there, make products that are beautiful and people like. But just let's be honest about it. Let's just be upfront and tell people what, if we're really doing a high dosage, or not dosage because that's not the proper technique, if you're just adding glycerin or sugar or whatever, then, or glucose, then you just tell consumers so that people know that this is a sweet rum as opposed to a...
You really think someone's going to put, we add glycerin to our bowl?
No, but
Makes people go, I used to put that in cocktails to make guys go toilet. When,
we keep talking. We keep talking about this box and this regulation and what the rules are. So, if you go outside the box and it becomes a liqueur, why didn't you bring one black liqueur and one dark rum? Why not? You know, because
Tails
once
only let me do 7.
And we'll be here till tomorrow as well.
No, but so at the end of the day, when the consumer's like, oh wow, it's, you know, it's either liqueur or it's rum. There's a very gray area.
Speaking of while they're talking, please grab a rum number 3 and take a sip as well. It's a.
I just wanted to add.
So which one was the vodka? It was number 1.
It was?
Yeah, number 1.
I can't remember.
Number 1. So if you said number 1 was the vodka, you were right.
I just wanted to add.
But number 3 is quick. Number 3 is a beautiful rum from number 3.
Limited edition.
We're on number 3 now. Number 3 is a beautiful rum all the way from Puerto Rico, and you're going to quickly talk about it because time.
Oh, great. So just briefly, this is a multi-columns rum. But it is, just the same, because our tradition, we share a tradition with our friends from Puerto Rico at Bacardi. Similar, sort of, that's Hispanic tradition, multi-column. We make a multi-column rum. We also make a heavy rum, which is from a single copper column distillation. We blend them, we age them separately. We also blend them and make a medium rum, or different medium rums, and we age those separately. And those become my color palette when I'm doing my blends. Everything Don Q does is a blend, except for this product. The very first time that we realized, we have all these beautiful colors that we're making these beautiful paintings with, but this color by itself actually is quite nice. Let's try it and just put it out there. So this is a multi-column rum, distilled at a pretty high proof, put in American white oak barrels for 10 years. And so the distillation date is 2005. It was bottled in 2015. And anyway, you tell me what you think.
Bravo. Cheers.
Okay, right.
What's amazing also, look at the color on this.
Is that real?
It's not very dark, right? 10 years, and it's not very dark. So again, that's another issue
With certain brands that have Coca-Cola colored looking bottles that have been aged for 2 years, but we're not going to mention those brands. As we quickly move on, because time is running out, do we need a new way to define and categorize rums globally? As I said at the start, a lot of people say that rums have no rules and regulations, so should we find a way to categorize them? Well, there's a few rum lovers and rum purchasers and buyers and blenders that have come together and actually put what they determine or they interpret a way to actually categorize rums. And I just want to quickly talk about some of the distillation methods before we go into that. So some of the traditional distillation methods of making rums were the traditional pot stills. Yeah, we can all agree with that, even in Martinique. And then you have the evolution of the pot stills, which would have been the coffee still, embracing the industrial revolution of Robert Stein and Ines Kofi, using some of the column stills to make your rums. And then you have the modern pot stills, which some would say are hybrids as well, with either a column inside there as well. So again, evolving the way we actually make our styles of rums, or as these guys make their rums. And then you had the modern distilleries, the evolution of the various different column stills, making what we call a lighter style of rum, or some would just say alcohol. But again, it's all about interpretation. So our friend, Mr. Luca Gargano, down here, Luca, one of the biggest rum buyers in the world and a passionate rum person. I think you were the first person to bring agricole rum into Italy, yeah? In what, 1970s? Oh, sorry, I'm not going to give your age away, but yeah. Luca Gargano from Velia Rums. And of course, as a buyer and as a lover of rums around the world, he feels and sees other spirits. He feels that we possibly do need some sort of categorization as such. But again, that's Luca's point of view. But this is for you guys to look at and discuss. In fact, I'm going to get Luca just to briefly describe what he meant by these 4 different interpretations of rum.
But it's very good morning. I'm Luca. I went first time in the Caribbean for work the 25th April 1975. So it's a quite long time I am in the rum business. And I think all the spirits have a classification. If you look at the whiskey, we have a pure single malt and the blended a grain whiskey. And in the rum are all together. It's like if Ballantine and Macallan are in the same category. So what I think, the pure single rum are the batch distillation, the discontinued distillation, like the pure single malt. Because the real difference in a pure single malt is not that come only from one distillery, single, from malt, but are 100% made in a batch distillation. In the rum, we have a category that doesn't exist in the whiskey, because the same distillery has a column, traditional column, and they have also a pot still, like for Square, to make an example. So it's a single blended. They blend in the barrels, the column, spirit, rum with the pot. Then we have the traditional, it is not a category. Okay, the traditional rum and agricole rum that are made with traditional column, the coffee still columns or the Creole columns. And then you have rum, the rum that come from the multi-columns. When in 1965, until 1965, didn't exist the category of a pure single malt. When the column arrived in the 19th centuries, the blenders like Ballantyne, Johnny Walker, Justerin and Brooks, they started to have a lot of product to do whiskey. But they understood that it was impossible to make aging with only a very neutral spirit. So they continued to buy from the small distilleries like Macallan and so, Stratisla, Glenlivet. And for this reason, these small distilleries still exist. Until 1965, no one small distillery bottled the whiskey. And it was Charles Gordon, William, 1 minute? Okay. So this is a category based on the apparatus from the still. And I think that make a transparency for the consumer that can better understand the different quality of rums. Have you seen the multi-column and the pot still are very, very different. And so also the rums are very, very different.
So basically what Luca's saying, there's certain things. A lot of people see that and say, yeah, but you can't categorize rums. Luca's not saying these are going to be the categories for rum globally. This is not every rum's not going to be placed inside these particular categories inside there. It's not an order of preference. You enjoy what you like. Yeah, you can enjoy what you like. Be careful what you pay for. Yeah, and it's not an order of quality, because as we know, there are some handcrafted and some hands behind the back rums out there that taste absolutely terrible. Yeah, so it doesn't mean just because you're handcrafted, you're artisanal, you're going to be good. So it's not an order of quality. And it's not a separation of light and heavy. It's more complicated than that. Yeah, and a global regulation for rum. Would there ever be a global regulation for rum? Is everyone going to agree with how they make their rums? Are we going to get Muslims to agree with Jews and Christians to agree with Muslims in certain countries around the world? No, because that's their religion.
And it's not one other one, it's not a putting together of common flavor profiles. In fact, again, like the order of quality, it's a little bit the opposite. As you kind of move up to pure single rum, we expect more diversity of flavor profiles than maybe down in the other categories.
But today, like you said, a global classification for rum. We don't have a global classification for whiskey.
For whiskey,
yeah, we don't. There's a classification for bourbon, and there's a classification for
Irish
Scotch.
whiskey and Scotch. Yeah.
Richard poured one glass of Maker's
In fact,
Mark
grab
and
rum
one
number
glass
4.
of Macallan.
Grab rum number 4.
The difference.
What category would we put that in?
Well, we have the tools to help us to understand the differences. So this is about having the tools to understand why the rums they are. And just to even get back to Roberto, I mean, when you look at, the beautiful thing about looking at Roberto's rum from Don Q is you get a good example, an honest example. His culture is a light rum making. They have Monte Carlo, so they can make, and you taste his rum. It's a beautiful rum, and it's light. The problem you get, of course, is then someone has the same method as Roberto, and suddenly it smells of sherry and on all these strange things.
We're talking about that.
And that's the point. In other words, and go back to even Alexander, in other words, do what you do and tell people what you do, and don't try to deceive people in what you do.
So rum
You
number
make
4,
light rum,
quickly.
you make light rum, you celebrate light rum.
If Ben, if you can talk through the rum number 4, the Clement XO, which we weren't supposed to be tasting. It was supposed to be the VSOP, but someone made a mistake and ordered the most expensive Clement.
Hallo.
Ian made the mistake and ordered the most expensive one.
I'm still learning about rum. I didn't know what to order.
However,
It was less letters in the XO.
if you want a good model of transparency, I present the Clement XO. As we've been talking about marketing bullshit and terms and age statements and whatnot, you see XO on the bottle here, and you see XO in a lot of different rums. Where I can tell you is that this XO, this is an age statement that means something. And if you don't know what it means, you can easily look it up. But I'll tell you anyway, it's 6 years old. Why it's so special and why it's expensive, because you can't get it anymore, so everyone's very lucky. This is truly, truly some of the last drops in the United States, because we took it off the market 2 years ago, specifically because, yes, XO means minimum 6 years, but we put on the packaging that it contains 1976 vintage, 1970, and 1952, and when we were out of liquid, we decided to take the product off the market. But you see other XOs out there, and to me that's infuriating, because I know what we are, and I know what we have to be, and there is actually enforcement in Martinique that says I can't do something different, but unfortunately other producers or other islands that come from different places aren't that, and that's the fight we fight. Anyway, enjoy. This is rum agricole, by the way, from pure sugarcane juice, from a column still. Distilled at 75% ABV. Aged in oak barrels. The color is natural, and it's the bench standard for everything we're talking about today.
I think it's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So before we get kicked out,
Just one last comment on the categories real quickly. Yeah, so people have been putting these in gold rum. It's ridiculous.
yeah,
It's
competition
imagine you're
judges
a judge
out
in
there.
a competition and you're supposed to judge. They're two completely different styles of rum.
Exactly. So before we leave, you got 3 rums at the bottom. I need you to nose taste, and we need you to tell us which one is the most authentic rum to you out of the 3, the last 3. Have a nose,
Yeah,
have a
last
sniff,
3.
have a taste.
Nose first, get an opinion with the nose so you know if you have a different opinion from nose or tasting. But it's a very simple question. Which one, bearing in mind all of our discussion on sugarcane and flavor from sugarcane, which one of these 3 do you think has the most authentic flavor?
Why, Ian? Ian, why?
So how are we for time? Okay. Well, okay, very quickly, who thinks number 5 has the most authentic rum flavor?
Who said hell no?
Who thinks number 6 has the most authentic rum flavor? Probably.
Wow, you guys are good.
And who thinks number 7 has the most authentic flavor? So I think number 6 is our winner, clearly, most authentic, and number 5 and number 7. So the point
Who won? Who won?
number 6 was definitely the most.
Is the most authentic.
Yeah. So the point of this
What was
exercise
second?
is
What was
very, very
second?
simple. Number 6 is a very, very old trick that suffered in the rum industry for a long time. That's 95% grain neutral spirit. And it kind of illustrates my point on the first 2. So in other words, for years and years, people would buy Jamaican rum into Europe and stretch it, which of course is basically raping the third world Caribbean.
Oh man, that's terrible. It's the Germans. I blame the Germans. It's
So
called rum
that's an
versus Schnitt.
illustration of that point.
It's called rum versus
And then
Schnitt.
the other 2 are what we see in the industry. These both are sold as ultra super premium in beautiful packaging. And unlike my friend Ben's here, they're made, you don't know, one of them is made with neutral spirit, one of them is not. And the point of this exercise is you can't tell because they've doctored it with flavoring, which is completely illegal. So all 3 of these products are completely illegal under the existing rules. Of course, one is the one I made up in the middle, so don't worry about that. It's not actually sold. But the other 2 are. And the problem we have in rum is the lack of enforcement. So we're all for diversity. We're all for embracing everybody, but it has to be authentic and just expanding. A lot of people think Alexander and I are not on the same side. We're totally on the same side with regards to sugar issue. I have a problem with the sugar issue.
Most of the time. Most of the time. Most of the time.
Most of the time. I have a problem with the sugar issue when it's deception. What Alexander said is it captures it perfectly. If you do something and you do it well, you will not hide it. You will talk about it. And the problem that we have is these guys here with the fake rum will try to convince you that the added vanilla in this is from years of aging. Bullshit. I don't think there's any aging. And this one will try to convince you that the orange flavor is from some super special barrels they made. This is nonsense. If you do something well, you're going to talk about it.
I just want to add, and I know Ian is in a hurry, but just want to say one thing. I just want to say one thing real quick.
That guy there with the glasses, him.
It is
that
not,
guy there. He's kicking us
it
out.
is, I spend a lot of time in the Caribbean from one distillery to the other, and that includes Richard and a lot of other people. As you know, with Plantation, we cherry pick barrels from all over the world. And the good news is, because when I hear here, I'm like, oh, this is doom and gloom. 99% of rum producers are genuine, great people making great products. You can feel good about this, and I can tell you this. This is very important to know. And yes, I like the fact, I'm not criticizing what we've done today. I think it's about education. But I think when I see everybody doing their products, rum, I don't want you to come out of this room thinking, shit, rum is that thing. I mean, really, it's really because I spent all this time, and I'm really seeing these people who make products with love and passion like never before. So I think rum is really going into an era where it's going to be better and better every day. People are learning about aging and things like this. Aging is really a relatively young experience in rum producing. So really, on a maybe lighter note, I want to say that what's happening now in the rum, producing world, that there's incredible products and more to come. So it's not,
Amen.
That was
Amen to that.
educational, but I think there's a lot very good rums to drink out there. Thank you.
Excellent. So guys, again, thank you for coming. I know we ran over time because there's some people that really love to talk, and this guy over here is pressurizing us to kick us out.
Sorry.
I know there's loads of questions, but we're still going to be around here, so you can come and ask us. We'll be here.
Actually, I'll
My
be
last word.
at Latitude sometime between 5 and 6.
Latitude. Oh, we're at Latitude. We're at Beach Bum Berry's place. Jeff's place. Jeff, can you get my rum? Can you
I'll
get
be
the
at
Cuban?
Latitude sometime between 5 and
Got
6.
it,
We're going
Havana.
to have this conversation. Thank you guys all for coming because it's important to educate yourself.
And remember, rum diversity is driven by our cultural differences, but it should not be an excuse to make cheap rum.